Welcome to Hobby Clubhouse with a review of the Bandai 1144 High-Grade Universal Century Z'Gok. This is a companion video to the HG Build Fighter's amazing Z'Gok, which has the full Char Z'Gok inside of it, so make sure to go have a look at that if you haven't already. Now, the Z'Gok is a superstar of the 1 Year War, and this kit was the first actual update to the iconic mobile suit since its original 1980 release. Seriously, for the longest time, people had no choice for a Z'Gok other than that old kit. So let's start off here by appreciating that important role of this kit, because this kit has some serious problems that will be important to know if you're interested in buying one for yourself. But first, let's have a look at some kit info. The mass production Z'Gok was the 6th release in the HGUC line, released in November 1999 for just 756 yen. The box is illustrated by Shino Masanori, who did nearly all of the early HGUC box art. The box is the smaller size ones common to the earlier releases, measuring 25.5 by 19 by 5.5 centimeters. The Char Z'Gok came out a few months later as the 19th HGUC release in February 2001. All other details are the same, including the box size and the box art, which is also drawn by Mr. Masanori. The side of the box has a front and a back view of the Z'Gok with some in-universe information, all in Japanese. And then the other side has just a few more studio shots and the Z'Gok doing a dab along with some information about the kit itself. And as always, these old boxes are pretty minimal and conservative with the box info. Inside the box, we get the kit spread across just 4 runners, with one of them being the polycaps. Notably, the black runner on the top right hand corner here are for the joints and their ABS plastic, which is supposed to be tougher and more durable, but this is the source of a lot of this kit's problems, but we'll get to that later. We get a small sheet of stickers with just this pink little circle for the mono eye, and then this hexagon for the cockpit door. The instructions give us more studio shots showing the Z'Gok as the king of dead internet fads like dabbing and planking, but seriously, the Z'Gok looks too adorable to be menacing. Just look at that shot here trying to give you a hug. The inner pages have the expected technical details on the kit, like the claws and its cruising mode in the ocean. And we do get the design illustrations used for making this kit, which the newer HG kits no longer include. The black and white side is all for assembly instructions, as you'd expect. After a little under an hour, we get the completed Z'Gok. It's not a complicated mobile suit, so I don't think there's much to complain about how it looks here. It's always interesting to look at all the repeating patterns on the Z'Gok, from the missiles on the head, to the cutaway windows for the mono eye, to the segmented arms. The Z'Gok's design is all about repetition, which complements the few bigger sections of simple geometry like the torso and the round lower legs. It communicates to us that this MS is designed for some specialized usage, and how different it looks from a Zaku. Now let's take a closer look at that iconic domed head. Perhaps one of the best parts of this kit is this top canopy, which is molded as one single piece, and because this is something you're going to look at all the time on this MS, it's nice that they made it this way. The segments of the arms and the legs are all their own continuous piece as well, so you're not going to get any ugly seams on any of them. The lower legs hide their seams as a panel detail, but this is the only place where it does this. The forearms have seams running down its entire length, which is really weird since it actually has panel details on this other side that they could have used. The seam on the left shoulder here is particularly bad, where it's not just a seam, but it also doesn't fit together nicely and it leaves this ugly gap. The fitting problem continues on the right shoulder here, where the two surfaces don't match up neatly. These flaws are present in all Z'Gok kits, and you're going to see the same issues here on my Char Z'Gok right here. It's a spot you're going to see a lot, and it's not something we can easily overlook, unfortunately. And we basically get seams on every other part, which isn't ideal, but to be fair, the Z'Gok can actually be taken apart like this, so at least it's very friendly for sanding down and painting. And I do like the bottom of the feet with all the dense panel details, and the turbines right here showing how it moves through the water. You're not going to see any hollow spaces anywhere on this kit, no matter where you look. For colors, we get the nice black missiles poking out from the top, and then we have these vents on the front here as separate pieces. We get the different tones of blue going from the bright aqua color here, to the deeper blue of the arm segments, all the way to the dark teal of these parts on the arms and the legs. The iron claws are yet another bright shade of light blue. So right out of the box, you get the Z'Gok that's properly represented in color with plastic, which is something. No complaints here. Speaking of colors, let's bring in the Char Z'Gok for a quick look at them together. Whichever kit you prefer, you're gonna get the same beautiful color separation. And in case you're wondering, the Char's version is exactly the same in every single way other than the color, so that's the only thing you're gonna be choosing between the two kits. The Char Z'Gok uses a salmon pink for the torso, which I personally prefer a little bit more than the traditional light pink, even if the light pink is more accurate to the original animation look. Okay, now for the not so good parts. The ABS plastic for the joints are meant to be tough and sturdy, but they come out of the box quite loose. I mean, maybe some people might think this is a problem with an aging mold, or maybe the ABS plastic itself changing with time, and both are possible. But my new blue Z'Gok here and my slightly older Char Z'Gok both have joints that have become really loose at some positions, but not loose in others. It's a little baffling and it's quite frustrating to handle the kit sometimes, which is not something you want from such a good looking rendition of the Z'Gok that'll make you want to play with it all the time. Oh, but it got worse. As I filmed my review, the joints showed a truly serious flaw. On my new Z'Gok kit, one of the ABS sockets here split during shooting, leading to this drooping arm all of a sudden. At first, I gave the kit the benefit of the doubt, and I wanted to say that, I have 3 pairs of these arms, and only one of these joints out of the 6 of them in total broke. But get this, as I filmed the review, a second joint broke, and this time on my Char Z'Gok. So, at this point, I have to conclude that the joints themselves have a structural or material weakness that Bandai never addressed, sort of. This problem becomes a little bit more suspicious when you see that the amazing Z'Gok kit comes with an updated shoulder joint and an entire new set of upper arms. So what it does is it replaces all of these upper arm ball joints, the ones that split, and that tells me that Bandai may have known about this problem and they don't plan to do anything about it on the retail kit. So make sure you know this and you're able to repair it if you're planning to buy an HG Z'Gok. But still, I wanted to finish the review, so I did a quick repair by swapping the broken joint into the segment below, which doesn't move quite as much as the shoulder. I put some super glue on, and then I reinforced it some more after it was in place. And that was all it took. The repaired piece worked fine after that, and I didn't have much trouble with it for the rest of the review. And since we're looking at the arms, let's talk about these segmented limbs. The segments are individually articulated, and they each have their own ball joint. The practical amount of movement you get out of all of this is actually pretty limited because of the shape of the armor, but I do admire the designer's ambitions in making this mechanically accurate to the Z'Gok like this. I think I'd definitely rather have them like this than not, though on a practical level, they're not going to bring you a ton of enjoyment through articulation, unfortunately. Now, a bit further down, we get the lower arms, which are basically the Z'Gok's weapons. Like many Zeon mobile suits, it doesn't have any separate handheld weapons, so in close range, we have these iron nails which can swing open individually. The ones here on my Char Z'Gok are really loose, but the mass production one doesn't seem to have that problem, so this is probably down to the luck of your draw. But looseness aside, they don't wobble much side to side and they pose quite nicely. The hole in the middle is its particle cannon, but it's too small for beam saber parts, but you can use this as a pilot hole and expand it to 1.5mm if you like. Now here's an impressive little detail that not many people credit this old kit. On the back here, the leg has this panel that maintains the curve of the exterior armor, but when the leg bends, that part swings inwards, giving it a much better bend. Now this not only looks like a sensible design in-universe, but it's actually a very simple and elegant way to give us good articulation on the knees. And this design is seen in later Z'Gok kits like the Master Grade, and it was first conceived on this kit, so clever stuff. Okay, on to the articulation. Starting from the top, the mono eye doesn't move and there's no separate head or neck. The arm swings up 90 degrees, and naturally it has no trouble swinging around a full circle. The arm segments can each rotate as we've already seen. The elbow bends only about 45 degrees by itself, but combined with the entire arm you get to about 90 degrees. The iron nail assembly can rotate along its peg, and we've seen that the iron nails can open and close. The waist is double jointed, and the entire upper torso can rotate smoothly along its ball joint. The lower waist joint gives us a swivel of about 45 degrees to each side. The legs attach to the hip on a ball joint and you can adjust its angle accordingly. The legs can kick a full circle here and there's absolutely nothing getting in the way. and they angle outwards as you kick up, so it can do a cute little sit on the floor like this. The segments on the legs can each angle along their ball joints, though not a whole lot, just like the arms. The lower leg bends 90 degrees. The bottom of the feet swing up this much, and they swing backwards this much, and they swivel side to side this much. All in all, the joints combined will let you make any pose you could reasonably want out of a Z'Gok, which is very impressive when you consider how bulky this MS is. I did feel a little limited in the sort of poses I could do, but I think part of that also has to do with the Z'Gok itself, which is very bulky, and this seems to be supported by the amazing Z'Gok, which Bandai tried to give us an updated shoulder joint, but sadly that ends up bringing no actual improvements to the range of motions. But anyway, this is a big and tubby mobile suit, and it's just not all that suitable for radical poses. And before we wrap up, here's a look at the two HG kits with the RG version. The MS itself doesn't lend itself much to radical redesign, so at first glance they look quite similar. But the RG is not only taller, but it has longer arms, and the forearms are actually quite a bit bigger. On the backside, it really loses a lot of ground to the RG, with the RG being far more detailed with all those frame details peeking through the armor. You can also see that the lower leg, which was also made longer, and that very cool receding panel on the back of the knees, the RG inherited that as well. But yeah, overall the RG looks more impressive, of course, but I wouldn't say it outright makes the HG obsolete. The HG is styled very differently, and there's gonna be a lot of people who want this more anime accurate and simple look. And the RG kits have their own can of worms with the loose joints, unfortunately, so it's not like it fixed that. With all that said, here's the Hobby Clubhouse 3-point verdict on the Bandai 1144 high-grade Universal Sentry Z'Gok. Number 1. It's not mechanically sound. There's no getting around that this kit is just not sturdy enough to the point of it being a flaw. And you couple that with the arms that are prone to breaking, and we have a kit that I just cannot recommend to casual buyers. I rarely say this, but stay away from this kit if you aren't comfortable with fixing it when it does break. And number 2, it's different and interesting. You know, if the first point up there isn't a big concern of yours, then I think the biggest reason to get a Z'Gok is for its looks. And this is nevertheless a very nice looking rendition of the character. Sure, it may have some seams here and there, but the kit itself is still nice to look at on the shelf. And it's a very unusual mobile suit that's going to add a lot of variety to your display. And number 3, this is a good kit for practicing sanding and painting. While this kit isn't good for straight building, it's actually pretty good for sanding and painting. You can take it apart easily and sand it down and color it without any complicated steps, so the Z'Gok is a good candidate if you're practicing as a beginning builder. So that's a review of the HG Z'Gok, a one-year war icon that sadly comes with a few fatal flaws. I hope this review has helped you in a future purchase. Thank you so much for watching. Come look us up on social media with updates and sneak peeks at upcoming videos and future projects. Links are in the description below. Or come out here some more with one of these other videos like the review of the amazing Z'Gok and the upgrades it makes to this kit. But before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified of new videos from Hobby Clubhouse, and I'll see you next time.